Onwards then with the first of our sessions. An absolute pleasure to welcome up onto stage our first guest. He's the co-founder and the chief executive officer of Zand, and since taking over this role back in 2018, he's focused really on leveraging hybrid digital banking strategies to establish the Zand brand as the first fully digital bank here in the region to combine both retail and corporate banking. Brings over 20 years of extensive expertise and leadership roles in digital banking and fintech across Latin America, the States, Asia, Europe, and of course more recently here as well, recognizing the need for a customer-centric approach to humanize the banking industry. He's here to talk fast-tracking financial inclusion for the digital economy. Please put your hands together for our first guest, the CEO, the co-founder of Zand UAE. It is Olivier Crespin. Olivier, bless you. Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome.
Take a seat. Great to have you on board, as always. And thanks not only for being with us here, Olivier, but also for all the support that you give in this very important sector at present. A true pioneer, a true influencer, a game changer, no less, with us here today. Let's talk vision, if we can, first and foremost. I wonder if you can explain your vision, but also the vision of Zand at the moment, and how it supports what is the focus of our conversation here, financial inclusion.
That's a great question, Tom. So I just want to start to explain our name and our logo, because when we started the bank, the idea was to address need in terms of financial inclusion. And I will explain that this name and this logo is all about inclusion. So people ask, what is Zand, right? So Zand is a contraction between sand and strength. We wanted a strong sand. And why we talk about sand is because when you look at all the particles of sands, they're all unique and beautiful. They're all very different. That represents our clients. We are all unique and beautiful. We have also different needs. That represents as well our partner, because we are very inclusive. We are not building the bank alone, right? We build the bank with others. And that represents also the employee of Zand. So when you take all these particles, which are so unique and different, you start creating inclusion. You start creating a community. You start creating an ecosystem. With sand, all the particles of sand you bring together, you start be able to build cities, to build bridges. Imagine a dune of sand that is moving, that nobody can stop, because you bring everybody together. So it's all about inclusion. We can do much more. Also, the logo you see behind Tom here, right, is an orb, and you see the orb is not complete, because you are going to be always in constant evolution to try to find the best service and offers for client and keep evolving ourselves. At the same time, sand is silicon, so it's digital. And if you reverse or read backwards Zand, you have DNA Z, which is the latest kind of organization. So it has been at the core of what we wanted to build from day one. And in fact, I've been working with a famous designer. His name is Philip Stark on this, with a friend. That's why he accepted to do it. To how we can, with this name, this logo, have a true identity that reflects what we want to be, what we want to stand for. And from that, everything, we have defined everything. All our products are linked. We have product like ecosystem link financing. We have product to support the people who are not included or feel left out, right, through digital. So I guess this is our vision, and we managed to get all this vision incorporated into a logo and a name.
We're talking financial inclusion today, and obviously finance is been aligned with the digital economy for quite some time, but has been accelerated in recent times. And yet, why is there still not enough financial inclusion in the world at the moment?
Yeah, you can realize that in the world there are a lot of people who are not accessing finance. And there are a few reasons for that. First reason is that education. We don't learn at school about finance, managing your finance. Also at home, right? You rarely talk with your parents about finance. It's like kind of taboo sometimes. And also, to be fair and honest, banks are very intimidating, right? That's a kind of very rough person that you, like a Scottish rugbyer, for example, that you a little bit scared of, but you like to have him as a friend, right? Because he knows things that you don't know. So there's all this apprehension as well about banks. And I remember when I was 16 years old, when I went to open my first bank account, I was very intimidated, right? He was like, what I'm supposed to do now? The guy give me a card, give me a checkbook. I felt a lot of responsibility because obviously the education, even if I had access to education, but I was not very teach how to leverage my finance. So I think what is very important is three things. To get financial inclusion, you need to get financial education. The financial education leads to financial literacy. That leads to financial inclusion. So you see in the world, I think there are like 1.7 billion people who don't have access to any kind of account. And obviously, when you don't have access to having a bank account, you don't have independence, you don't have freedom, you cannot do what you want to do. You cannot, in no case, you are going to get a loan, for example, as well, to try to grow a business. So there are a lot of limitations that you're having because you're not an unbanked person.
And what's the impact? Because again, I suppose people look at digital economy, they look at effectiveness now, they look at things being streamlined. What's the impact if one does not have financial inclusion? How does one suffer?
It's a big suffering. In fact, you end up having hunger. You not be able to feed yourself, to educate yourself, to contribute more. You are left out of a society, unfortunately. And in fact, if you look at the goals of the United Nations, right? Yeah. There are 17 goals, sustainability, development goals that they have established, 17. And out of the 17, 7 are around financial inclusion. So it tells you how big is this issue that we really have, right? And all these 7 are to address hunger in the world, to address poverty, access. I think very often women are not getting access as well, more than men. And SME businesses as well are not getting access. And if you have a business and you cannot access to finance, there is nothing much you can do. And we see a lot of difference as well, because when you have a high level of financial non-inclusion, the country is not doing well as well. So you have a lot of emerging markets where only 25% of the population have a bank account, for example. And you can see it really on the situation of the country at the world level, right?
So what's the responsibility, what's the role for banking in addressing this imbalance at the moment?
So I think the bank have a key role to play. Obviously, what wants bank to achieve? Bank wants to build solution around the client, to address a real need from clients, right? So first of all, I will say what is the needs and that need to be addressed, yeah. Right? So the first need is when you ask people what is a job to be done, they want things to be done in an easier way. It has to be easy, it has to be simple, so it's not so complicated. You don't need to have a PhD to understand how the bank account works. The second aspect is people want to be recognized. They want to be that the bank recognize who they are, what they do. And even for people who have bank account, it's very frequent that you may have a saving account with a bank, but the day you ask for a mortgage, the same bank is going to ask you, who are you, where do you work, etc. So we need really to understand and know the people. we need as well to be able to find the best product most suitable for people and relevant. And that not is again built from a centricity point of view, client centricity point of view, is really to be able to help the person to fulfill his day-to-day needs. Is also to help the people to fulfill their lifetime goals. And the banks, the fourth point they need to provide peace of mind, right? To make sure that if the person wants to get support or get back his money hardly earned, he will be able to do it. So I see a lot of evolution, and I think that digital is really allowing to address all these points. If you look at the evolution of banks, you know, initially you have one bank 1.0, I would call, when you are in a village and someone is giving you money. 2.0 is really when you start having bank a little bit established, but it's very manual. You have to go there, you ask for money, you open an account. 3.0 is when you start digitalizing the existing process and also get embedded into different ecosystems. So you start seeing the bank being always present, but kind of invisible. You are doing banking activity even without realizing you are doing a banking activity. In fact, you know, if you take 70% of the human activity end up or start with a financial transaction. So for example, to come here to present, I had to buy a suit, I have to, you know, so that's financial transaction. But sometimes you don't even realize that. And this is what is happening more and more. So this is banking 3.0. You can see, you see wallet everywhere, you pay, click, QR code, etc. Banking 4.0 is when any corporate potentially can become a bank. Because you can partner with a bank who is going to offer you the pipe to do the financial transaction. And what I believe is to get full inclusion, because when you look at market like Indonesia, where you have, I think, 18,000 islands, India, in Africa, where you have a lot of villages, the last mile, even if you are digital, the last mile to reach everybody is quite difficult. Yeah. So what I think is that what you can end up having in future is you can have a kind of a digital assisted kiosk in village where people can get access to credit lines that will be decided or using very sophisticated bank tools, right? So all this is kind of a constant evolution. So I think banks have a very big roles to play on this.
Banks would have had that digital agenda, if you like, pre-pandemic, pre-COVID-19, and I'm sure COVID-19 is going to crop up in conversation a lot for us throughout the afternoon. What impact would you say has the pandemic had on that digitization agenda for banks, and also the idea of financial inclusion? Has financial inclusion benefited from the pandemic, or has it been at a disadvantage?
I think that first part of the pandemic, definitely a disadvantage, because the people who were in difficulties get more into difficulties, right? So it has been like a snowball effect, right? If you start the pandemics in a bad situation, you are going to end up in a worse situation. But I think longer term, right, it's like you can see the impact of the pandemic on digital transformation, not only from banks, but across the... To come to the Expo today, you had to use 2 apps, right? Yeah. You have a QR code with your vaccine, you have a QR code entry ticket, and that's really something that is everybody gets used, every age. And I keep saying, you know, digital is not about, people say, oh, it's for 18 or 15 to 30 years old. No, it's not about the age, it's about the mindset. And I think everybody in the world got a crash course on digitalization. 2 years ago, we were going to a restaurant, you were not ordering with a QR code or with your phone. No, everybody used it. So the step to move into demanding the same level, easy, simple, so digital is accelerating. And we see the reluctance that you had before of people to open an account online or to do transaction online is disappearing very, very fast.
Yeah. And to that end, just to sort of follow up on that, I mean, we have seen sort of opportunity come out of adversity during the pandemic. And one of the, dare we say it, sort of areas of growth has been fintech. There's been a large look for seed investment into fintech ideas here. Is that something that you're seeing at the moment? Again, is that a benefit that we could take moving forward?
Yes, it's really, we can see a lot of, when you talk about the ecosystem, a lot of fintech who have been specializing in solving some of the needs, addressing needs of people. And that's really coming together very, very nicely. And not only on the private side, on the fintech side, I would say the government as well have been accelerated, and particularly here in UAE, right? With the infrastructure you have with Emirates ID, for example, with Emirati face recognition.
Yeah.
All these kind of solution can plug and complement very nicely what you are building. It's not happening only here. It's happening as well in India, it's happening in Indonesia, in many countries, as well in Africa. And the infrastructure at the government level is also key to be able to deliver service digitally to people across the country and come up with very, very innovative products. So there are some ideas coming up from fintech that you may not have even thought about like a year or two ago, but now they are become so evident and obvious that it is moving very fast. So also, when you talk about financial inclusion, a big limitation of financial inclusion in many countries is that people don't have IDs. You have a lot of people, they don't have even a identity card. So all this is a condition, right, a baseline to be able to do all that. So a lot of private or government company to help build that baseline is always very welcome.
Going to get to questions in just a few moments' time from the floor, but also virtually. Got any questions that you'd like to send us from the city, then feel free to get in touch on social media. Feel free to send us your thoughts or questions, and we'll address them with Olivier in just a few moments' time. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on the UAE. I mean, latest stats, latest figures suggest that there might be as much as a third of the country, a third of the population here in the UAE that still remain unbanked. I mean, given your experience here now with Zand and the brand, what do you see as the prospects of opportunity here in the UAE moving forward, as opposed to maybe other challenges that you might find elsewhere in the globe?
Yes, so that's a great question again. So if you take the UAE, if you take the nationals, is good inclusion, obviously, is I think 87%. Which is good. Where there is not enough financial inclusion is usually the foreign workers. They don't have access to a bank account. Why they don't have access to a bank account? Because for a conventional or traditional bank is very difficult or is very expensive to offer a bank account, because the people need to go to a branch, so you need to, it's going to real estate, etc. So it's expensive. For us, is to add more people is just adding some servers, I think, and you can onboard. You don't have this kind of limitation, and it's become easy. Because what's happened right now is that most of the foreign workers in the country, they have a card usually where they receive the salaries. The day they got the salaries, they go and withdraw in an ATM, and then they go to money exchange and they send it back to the country. So all that can be done digitally. Plus, you can offer obviously some services to make them grow the money they have, etc., and come up with other things. So that's opportunity number one. And when we talk about financial inclusion, is not only about individuals. Sometimes a big issue is SME business, where it's almost very difficult for some SME to open an account or to get deposit. And that's also an area we want to address. And we want to address through, again, ecosystem. We are going to engage with SME who are part of an ecosystem we understand well. And we understand this ecosystem well, or we'll understand the ecosystem well, because we have a very strong data analytic platform. When we build a digital bank, it's about, obviously, technology, the system you have, but also a very strong data platform built from day one that we can really leverage.
Right, lots of questions coming in, conscious of time as well. Equally, if we've got any questions from the floor, all those that have joined us down here at Expo 2020 Dubai, if you've got any questions from the floor, feel free just to raise a hand and we'll get a microphone over to you. So we've got a question over here in the corner. In fact, a nice loud voice should do, and then I'll be able to repeat the question. Sure, sir. Yeah, why not?
Thank you so much for enlightening us on the financial implications of digital economy, and it's a very innovative idea of Zand Bank. Very good luck to you. So my question is with regards to compliance. With the digitalization, of course, there would be easier way of doing things. But when it comes to compliance, like there would be some central bank compliances, there would be some anti-money laundering compliances, and you know how the transactions are running through over one country to another country with the click of a button. So what challenges do you face with regards to these compliances, and how do you overcome these challenges, and with also keeping in mind the ease of doing things using.
So compliance.
Yeah. So first of all, we are getting regulated by the central bank. So, and when we say digital bank, you're absolutely right, right? You have two elements. You have digital and you have bank. So the DNA of bank is about compliance with regulation, risk management, financial expertise, and kind of trust, right? So that, obviously, we don't want to compromise it. So, but we want at the same time to add the DNA of digital, which is around customer centricity, better leverage of the analytics, the data you have, and the third point is built on new technology. So it's obviously a combination of the two. You need to have a very strong expertise, and we have a lot of here, even in the room, people who have a very strong banking experience. We are not compromised on that, but we are working with new technology to make it easier. So if I take an example, when I was in a traditional bank before, to do KYC, AML, and transaction monitoring, I needed 17 different systems. Here we can do it with one, which is parameterized, which is much easier to use, and we have some kind of AI added into it to be able to identify what are the false positive. You know, because you can, when you onboard someone, you may have a lot of false positive, which make it take. So we add that, we have mapped the thinking process of compliance officer to be able to do this kind of thing. So it's really about leveraging the latest technology to be able to do things that we have to do, and we are fully aligned with regulator. We don't want to allow any wrongdoing, but we do it using the latest technology available, and that simplifies a lot of things.
Appreciate your question. Thank you very much indeed for that. We'll have more questions from the floor. A couple of questions that are coming in from the city out there virtually. Nice here. So we've got an element of senior and junior, the young and the old. So maybe I can try and combine the two. So we've got Mohammed from Abu Dhabi who wants to know, Olivier, thank you for your kind points. You talk about the importance of financial education. What topics, Olivier, should be included in such a curriculum at the school or university level? And then counter to that, we've got Jerry also tuning in from the UK. He is out there on the ABLF City at the moment. Thanks, Jerry. Saying, and what should governments do to improve financial literacy among senior citizens as well, who may find it a little bit daunting? So you've got both ends of the spectrum there.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So I think it's pretty much the same, right? But it's about what you need to teach is about saving, I think, first, right? It's important. We have money. It's not like something you can just spend like that. Saving, making sure you spend within your means, right? And give some guideline and think, you know, before you are going to spend, that you can really afford it. I think as well some course about insurance, right? How you insure and protect what you have. How you do as well investment in product, what is the risk of the product, and be able to build a kind of a balance portfolio slowly at your level, right? So all this is very important. It's also applied to older people. I think everybody really have a lot of questions, and usually when you talk to people, the people don't They're a little bit, they don't want to ask this question, and everybody has the same question. But so when you bring people in a room and you start talking, and we have been doing some kind of facilitation like that with group of women or group of people who are maybe older, etc., or people from different segments, this question come up, and they realize it's good because everybody has the same question, and nobody dare to ask. But that's about that, saving, protecting what you earn, making sure if you invest, you understand what is the risk of your investment, etc., and not invest too much, obviously, and keep what you need to leave, right?
Almost at time. Last one from me, Olivier, before we move on with proceedings. An opportunity for us to look into the future. We've talked a lot about what's happened. We've talked a lot about the last couple of years. But what's next? And how do you predict that will help to form, to support financial inclusion moving forward?
So I think that is moving very fast. And you see all this, what's happening with crypto, tokenization, decentralized finance. And I had a friend, he was the other day traveling, and someone, he bought a phone, and the merchant didn't have a bank account, apparently, for whatever reason. He said, can you pay in Bitcoin? So you have a direct, it goes direct. Decentralized finance as well is coming very, very fast. It's going to accelerate the way you can integrate with fintech and startup. We are providing part of the solution, all of them. And also on the capital market, I think tokenization of private assets like real estates is going to make it more accessible, at least at a smaller level, and make your investment more liquid in a way. So a lot of things happening in this world that is going very fast. Even NFT, everybody talk about NFT, and I think NFT can have a role to play in finance, but that's to be written, right?
Well, the good news is we can talk about it at another gathering together like this and another ABLF Talks. Olivier, appreciate you giving your time for us this afternoon. Appreciate everything that Zand does here in the UAE and around the globe. Big thanks to all of you for your questions. Big thanks to all of you out there. Do stay with us on ABLF City, but it just remains for me and all the team at ABLF Talks to say a big thanks to the CEO and the co-founder of Zand UAE, Olivier Crespin. Merci beaucoup.